Hey team, how are you? And welcome to the Experience with Rehman Cee. This is where we talk to real people about real stories, about real life. And I'm going to be inviting Sara Irvin to come on board. So we're going to have a quick chat with her and find out more in terms of life lessons. So Sara, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am absolutely amazing. It's wonderful to see you, and thanks for hanging out with me. And you're not too far from me, actually, because we're cousins basically. You're in South Carolina, and I'm in North Carolina, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. What part of North Carolina are you in?
Raleigh.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful there.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun. It's fun. I like it. So, how long have you been in Aiken? You said you're in Aiken, right?
Yeah, so I've been in Aiken for 2 years. If you can't tell from my accent, I'm from Tennessee. So I have that thick Appalachian accent, but we've been in Aiken for 2 years.
Okay, cool. And so you were raised in Tennessee. Which part?
Right outside of Knoxville in a small little town called Morristown. So I worked at like Dollywood Splash Country in college and stuff like that. So.
Okay, cool. Excellent. So, so tell me, I'm going to ask you the question. So, what's your message to the world? What would you be your message to the world?
Wow, that's you hit me deep, right on. So, I think this changes as I grow as a human, in my experience in the world. But I would say I would say that my message to the world is to live and to experience the beauty that is all around you and to really take it in because life is short. And I know that's really cliche, but I've had my own encounters with near death experience, and it truly is short.
Yeah. So, so let's talk about that. Let's go back in terms of the whole philosophy of things. Tell me a little bit more about your parents and their parenting style. How did they raise you?
So I have a very religious upbringing, but it's kind of unique. I think it's unique from the area that I was born in. It's pretty much like the Bible Belt area. My mom was different in the aspect that she had a very open mind. So I was raised in a very Christian background, but we went to all kinds of different denomination churches. And she never was closed-minded to learning new things, and so that definitely was influenced me in my thinking, especially in a small town with really narrow beliefs. And I was homeschooled, so I do have that very I had a very sheltered upbringing. I couldn't listen to mainstream music, and it was a big emphasis on what you take into your body as far as like content, food, all of it was important. And so I have a kind of unique background to people in my community that I was raised in.
Do you think you were sheltered or protected?
I would definitely say I was sheltered because our homeschooling stopped in high school, and I was like thrust right into everything. And my mom started, as she had more kids, I think she started just trying different things. Like I said, she had a very open mind. And so some of those rules that I grew up with in my younger years, she kind of just, totally changed and was like, well, actually, this stuff is fine now. So I would say it was definitely sheltered, and there was a little bit of a shock being introduced to, everything I was, I guess, sheltered from. I don't know if protected, maybe even protected is the correct word for that.
Yeah. So, so what was that? Was that a rude awakening when you went to high school? I mean, like, what was the actual experience? It was like, what was that kind of, shell
It
shock?
was it was complete shock. So, I mean, I think, and this is so embarrassing. This is the only time I'm admitting it, and I'm gonna admit it live on YouTube. I played with like Barbie dolls till I was 13, and so like to wrap your head around that, I was still playing with Barbie dolls 2 years prior to going into high school, and so I think it was shocking. It was very shocking to me, and everything that I had learned and were a part of my core. It was completely shaken. It made me question. It made me question everything around me.
Okay.
The
So
shocking would be.
yeah, it would be an understatement, right? So let's
Yeah.
go back. Like, so talk to me about like how your mum and dad met, um, and then your grandparents as well. How did they raise your parents?
Okay, yeah. So this is gonna be a little bit of a story. So my mom and my biological father. So I was raised by my stepdad. My biological father and my mom divorced when I was 3, but my siblings were older at the time, and so they probably had. I think they have different experiences and memories than I do. So she
How old
met
were you?
my
Who did you?
father when she was only 18 at I want to say that they met at a grocery store, like cliche story like that, but they did, and they were married for 16 years. But I don't have much memory as far as that, as far as their marriage goes. My mom and her parents, they met. Gosh, when I don't remember. I don't think I've ever asked what their like meeting story was. They're both deceased now, but they were married for many years before my grandfather died. My grandfather died when my mom was around 16.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of like, their way of raising your parents.
Yeah, so yeah, let's like divide that into two. So my mom's upbringing, her parents were entrepreneurs, and so I think that open-mindedness and that creative side that she put into me was put into her by her parents. They did not have this traditional like strict parenting style. They had this more open, loving, caring. Let's see what this child can create and do, so that was different. And then my grandparents on my dad's side were more traditional, and they had a more stern and more religious, I guess you could call it a more traditional parenting style for the South.
Yeah,
Strict and so two totally different backgrounds as far
right,
as the way they were raised. Yeah.
right. And so, yeah, that's interesting. It gives you a better background to like identity and the person. And so you have that, and then you have your mum. Was she the eldest or the youngest?
She is the middle child,
Okay, and then your dad is the eldest or the youngest?
and he's the middle child as well.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting. And then so these guys met at a grocery store.
Yeah, so my father was managing the grocery store, and he's passed away now, but he was a lot older than my mom, and so I think there was a 15-year age difference between the two. But yeah, they met at the grocery store that he managed.
Yeah, and so what do you think was the attraction? Because obviously she was very different.
She's actually told me this. I've asked, curious when when you don't really know somebody and you're kind of relying on stories, right? So stories from my siblings and story from aunts and uncles and trying to get to know somebody you didn't really know that well. She said that for her father died when she was 17. So 17 or 16, I might mishap on that. But she said she was very attracted to that nurturing side and that almost like fathering side of him, where he had more life experience and wanted to take care of her. And I think that was the initial attraction from her side.
Okay. And so you're in the middle as well, are you, or you're the youngest?
I am the middle child.
Okay.
There's 5 of us.
I don't know why, but I just felt that that was the case. But
Yeah.
then when your mum got married, she had some more kids.
Yeah, so my mom, and I call my stepdad's passed away as well. But he's who I would call my father. He raised me from 4 up, and they had 2 children together. So there's 3 of us from the first marriage, and then 2 of us from the second, or
And
2
yeah,
my
yeah.
brothers.
So how long was he with you before he passed away?
From he passed away, and when I see, gosh, in 2011. In 2011.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so tell me, how's your journey gone? It's interesting just to have that background, and then tell me about your journey. What have you been doing to get you to where you are right now?
Oh wow. So there's been a lot, and not to like dive into every aspect. I'm gonna just start at probably my life-changing moment was I think we're all always subtly changing, right? From everything. So I want to like preface that there's not like sometimes you can think it's just one thing that caused it, but I think we're always learning and growing. And so in 2015, I perforated while I was 29 weeks pregnant. I cannot tell the story without crying, so I apologize.
Oh, that's fine.
And
I understand.
so I'm gonna get it together.
It's all good.
And for me, almost losing my daughter and myself, it was this experience. I'm gonna get my words together because I want this I feel like this message is important. In the moment of being in the ICU and my daughter being in the NICU, there was this moment of oneness and a feeling of oneness, of just being connected to everything. And I don't know how to explain that other than you just feel connected in this moment where time feels irrelevant, problems feel irrelevant. It just feels you still feel so connected to everything around you. And that was a pivotal moment in my life, just knowing, wow, we're all connected, right? And I know that may seem strange to some people. We're all connected, right? But I truly feel that and believe that. And that knowledge and belief has really shaped the way I live now and the decisions that I make, and I power through that without getting full on crying. So
cry as well.
yeah. So from that moment on, I was in the hospital for a few months, and my daughter was in the hospital for about 6 months. And then when she got out of the NICU, she was in and out of the hospital for about a year and a half after that. And the moment that I got out of the hospital, I just had this feeling of never again will I work a job that doesn't mean something to me. Never again will I fight over a potato peeler. I don't know. I'm just making up. Like never again will I take for granted this life. And so I quit my job. I used to be a paralegal. That's what I went to school for, was political science. I quit my job and I started my own business. And and everybody around me at the time was like, this is crazy, you shouldn't do this. And it was nothing that I had done before, as far as anything I'd went to school for, anything that made rational sense. It was a spray tan business, and I've wanted to do it for a few years, and I was like, I'm going to do this. This is fun to me. I'm going to do it. We have one life. It can be taken away in a matter of moments. And at the time, I needed to really make an income while my daughter was still in the hospital. That provided me flexibility. And so then that's when my first company was born, and it started in my basement. I'm
Nice.
trying to condense down, sorry, like a longer story.
Yeah, but so what was your identity before that situation arose? And did you meet a guy? Was this like planned, unplanned?
Yeah. So wow, totally bypassing, my meeting my husband and all that. So I met my husband in 2011 when my father had passed away. And prior to that, I was in a very abusive relationship, and not physically abusive, just mentally abusive relationship, very toxic relationship. And I was in that relationship from 16 to 2010. So it was a pretty long journey prior to meeting my husband, of like just a bad cycle. But then I met my husband in 2011 when I was going through the trauma of losing my father, and he just, hold on, sorry.
Take your time. And this is the beauty of doing authentic recording. So I love the relaxed attitude that we can just like, not have to be so crusty. Crusty means like formal. And this is all part of human living, that we try and put up like an impression.
I apologize. My daughter came in to my
Oh,
office.
you can bring her in and put her on your lap if you like.
Sorry. But anyway, yeah, I met my husband in 2011, and yeah, we should have introduced her.
Yeah, you can bring her if she needs to come. You don't. I mean, this is chilled. This is like real. Yeah. So I'm not worried about like if she comes and disturbs you, or you want to put her next to you or whatever. It's all good.
Sorry about that. But yeah, so we met in 2011, and so as far as meeting him and building our family, it wasn't unplanned. So our pregnancy wasn't an unplanned thing. But obviously, we had no idea that it would be such a high risk, deal.
Think was the situation that made that oneness? How did that happen? Like, can you rationalize what the reason for it was?
I think, gosh, that it's really hard to describe, and I hear a lot of stories of people who've been in car wrecks or somewhere where something tragic happens, and they have this feeling as well too. It's very hard for me to articulate it. For me, it just seemed that everything that was in my reality before that I thought might have been an issue or that might have been of importance, it all kind of just fell away, and the things that were really important were there, right? And that feeling of connection, I don't know how to articulate that. It
sounds like you got to the realist point of awareness, meaning everything else fell apart or fell to the side, and you realized this is it. This is the only thing that really actually matters. Do you get what I'm saying? And in that understanding came the serenity of, feeling not only connection with that situation, but recognizing that within that space, everything else is also connected.
Yes.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So carry on. Tell me, you had your tanning salon as your first venture.
Yeah.
And then things progress.
Do what?
And then how did things progress?
Okay, so I'm one that if you tell me I can't do it, I'm gonna do it. So I definitely use what some people might use as something that would stop them, prevent them from doing that. I tend to use that as a motivator to do it. And in the past, sometimes that hasn't been so great for me because the advice was really actually good. Don't do it, right? But as far as for my business, there were so many people that just couldn't see it. And I was on a mission to truly build something that I could be with my children, that I could enjoy doing. And for me, also be around people and have that connection with other humans, right? And so we started in our basement, and I had a vision board of 10 people. And at the time, writing 10 people to be my customer would be like me saying, I want to make $300,000 a month. That would be like me writing that goal. It just seemed so unobtainable at the time because I'd worked in an office. I didn't really have lots of girlfriends outside of work, just mustering up 10 clients seemed really unobtainable in the beginning. Fast forward to about 3 months in, I had about over 100 clients. And then at the 6-month mark, I had so many clients I needed to bring in a business partner. Wow. And her name is Latasha. So she's been with me since 6 months into starting the business. And from there, at the end of our first year, we had over 1,000 clients. Today, on our 5th year, we have trained 200 women to start their own businesses and certified them. We have 7 employees on our within our company, and we service 3 states. So it did grow, right? And it's something that I really enjoy doing, and it led me ultimately it led me into the industry I'm in now, which is business coaching.
So what do you attribute that success to?
Oh, I would just say just persistence and not giving up. I feel like if you put effort and time into something, that it can truly be what you want it to be. And so there, it's just the persistence and the time that I put in there. And there definitely was, like in the beginning, there definitely was times that it seemed so hard and I wanted to quit, right? And just pushing through that, the persistence of pushing through that.
So like, was there competition around, or were you the only one? Was this like really a unique proposition relative to everything else around you?
Right. So when I started, there was hardly any competition. And that is a good thing, right? That was a great thing
Right,
for
right.
me. But it also was not so good of a thing because people hadn't really heard about what I was doing, especially because we were going into people's homes. And so at first there was this pushback of, oh, that's weird. You're going to come to my house and um, but it did end up working out, like one client leads to a 100 clients, and that definitely worked for me. And there wasn't competition at the time, but as we grew, the industry grew in the East Tennessee area. So as we grew and we became known, more and more people started to open in their own businesses. And honestly, I teach not to focus on competition. I think that's very important. You need to put your energy into you and your business. So as other businesses started opening up, I wanted to show up for them as a mentor, as somebody that can help them, as somebody that can answer questions for them. And I never thought of it as a competition per se, like a competition in the market or a saturated market.
Yeah. So if I understand it correctly, it wasn't like you had a tanning place. You would go to their houses
Yeah,
and
yeah. So
that,
and yeah. Sorry, a mobile. Yeah.
right. Okay. And then so those 200 um, consultants basically that you trained up, they were basically setting up the same proposition, self-employed, going out and doing it themselves as well.
Yeah, and so we have people that are within our company, but the people that we train and certify outside of our company, they are their own businesses. We don't take any of their money. They just take our training courses, and then they're their own businesses. Some of them have actual shops, and some of them are mobile.
Yeah. And your business partner's Letitia, did you say?
Latasha.
Latasha, how did you meet her and how was that
Yeah.
relationship?
Um, I met her as a client in the beginning, and she had actually had experience with spray tanning in the past, and we just hit it off. We joke that we're soulmates, we're twin souls to say. We just immediately hit it off, and the day I met her, I wanted her to bring her into my business, and she was like, well, wouldn't that be taken away from yours? And so after a few months, after a couple of months of being persistent with her, she finally joined on, and our company wouldn't be where it is without her. She is everything I'm not, and I'm everything she's not. So we kind of, really balance each other out. Ironically, even though I worked as a paralegal, my attention to detail is terrible. My punctuation is terrible, and I hate all the like tedious back end side of work. I like to be the creative one, and so we kind of balance each other out in those ways because she's amazing at all those things.
Wow. Wow, that's really interesting because, being a paralegal, you're doing exactly that, right?
I had no idea who I was when I went to school for
Yeah.
that, and even working it, I had no idea who I was at the time, right?
So, who are you? What's your identity now?
I feel like I'm a creative person, right? And um as a paralegal, I didn't feel like I had that creativity. I felt like I was needing to fit inside of a box that didn't feel right to me. So I feel like I'm a creative, free, spiritual person.
Yeah, it's almost as if you're taking after your grandparents and your mum, you know, that kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
light is coming through you.
Yes.
So you've got a pretty good idea of what your daughter's going to be like going forward,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I have one son and two daughters, and our middle daughter is basically a carbon copy of me, and our youngest is the one that was in the hospital a lot, and we joke that she's making up for lost time. She is just so adventurous and curious.
Yeah, yeah, and it's again the middle one, right? So that's interesting as well. So yeah, so you're creative and spiritual. So talk to me about that. What is the meaning of life for you? What is life all about?
I know I'm gonna beat this one on the head. I think it's being one and understanding everything is connected. And for me, it's what can I put out in this world that can help and inspire other people and foster this connection even further. And I know that's like very kind of like a broad, not direct answer, but I'm not going to claim to know the meaning of life, but what it is to me is a connection to everything, to everyone.
Yeah. So does your husband follow that same tradition?
So my husband is very open-minded, but his he's definitely different than me. And I would I would say we're a lot like my business partner and I, as far as he's opposite of me. So more logical. He wasn't raised with a spiritual upbringing, and so a lot of that side of him has been brought out because of me, and a lot of um, the logical, the like this kind of way of thinking that is attributed to him. So we balance each other out in that way. But yeah, he's definitely different, but he's not opposed to it. He's open to it.
So you would, what would you do? Would you, let's be a little bit controversial, would you reject your Christian traditions or you still hold on to them?
I would not go as far to say as to reject them. I would say that I just have a broader. I wouldn't say I reject them, but I wouldn't say that
They
that
completely
is
represent you.
wholeheartedly my belief, right? But that's not. I do believe in a greater power and a creator, but I don't know what that is. I don't hold the answers. Nobody truly does, right? Um, but so reject may not be the right word, but open to other things would be probably a better word.
Yeah. I mean, and this is part of the reason I do this is because I'm just trying to get insight from different people about this whole idea of what the meaning of life is, because it's certainly something that I'm understanding much more, but getting perspective from different people and, seeing if they've thought about it and what they've thought about it and where they are on their journey is interesting. I'm sure the answer is out there somewhere. So if I talk to enough people, maybe I will get the answer, right? Um, so what do you think of like Hinduism or Buddhism or is Islam or Judaism, or what are these teachings then?
So I have looked into a lot of different religions and I see a lot of common themes amongst them. And so that for me is even more confirmation and proof that there definitely is a creator, and there definitely that the world, the universe there is a purpose, right? Because there's so many um common things amongst all the religions, and to say what I think of them, I don't know. I find it all interesting that they are similar in lots of ways. So I guess I think it's interesting. I think, but I don't have like a belief system around it, right? I don't have like a belief that one is good or one is bad. I don't have that. I just have looked at this and seen there's lots of similarities and there's lots of um, common messages throughout different religions.
So a couple of questions. One is that if you believe that the universe has been designed, right, which is what I understand you're saying.
So I believe, let me back that up, because I have a belief that the universe is that we design our own versions of our realities.
Okay.
So that to just kind of narrow that down of what I believe we create our everything around us, right? But I do feel like there to me, I believe there is some sort of other higher being or creator. Yeah.
Yeah. So why would that creator create us to be one?
To be one? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I've never even thought why of that. So that's going to take me a second to answer it authentically.
I don't think many people have. I'm just like interested in asking that question because, I always think, okay, if there is some sort of higher power, higher force, some sort of consciousness that exists, puts us here, we're become aware and we're conscious. But what is the point of that thing creating us to be aware and conscious? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, how does it serve that thing for it to have made us and put us here? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know. So I'm trying to break this down, because I think that we also, if you look into other religions, they say that, especially Christianity, we'll use that as the example. They say that you're created in the image of a creator, so we have the ability to create the things around us, right? But maybe I don't know, like, what's the purpose of us creating things, right? So and what is the purpose of a human creating something?
See,
That's a hard question. I don't think I can, and I think I'm gonna have to do some soul searching to answer that. I don't know if I have an answer
yeah,
for
and
it.
the other interesting thing is, and I'm just being a little bit, I'm just being a little bit controversial, but the other interesting thing is that when you say you are trying to act in the image of the higher power, right? What is that higher power? How can you even actually comprehend who that higher power is to be able to represent yourself in that image? Like, if you're not even in that time and space, if it's something that's so like powerful that it created the universe and it created existence and everything in it, how can you even be like attempting to be in that
Yeah,
image?
so totally just gave an example of what, Christianity says you're made in the image of things. I do, aside from religion, I do believe that we create the destiny, we create everything around us. It's scientific that our thoughts put out energies outside of our body. Um, but to say, how do I
But
know
we're
that we're connected to this creator that's so big, right? That's so hard to understand. I don't know.
But how do you correlate that? So like we're thinking theoretically, right? We're
Yeah.
thinking intellectually, and then you had this experience of oneness. How do you connect those two things together? Because you had
I
an
don't.
experience, right?
Mhm.
So there is knowing by thought, by understanding, and then there's knowing by experience, right? And the problem for the person with the experience is that how do you know that that experience is true? Do you get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And the one who intellectualizes is how do you know that what you're thinking is actually true? You need the evidence, and then someone's got the evidence, and then what's the what's the not necessarily theory, but what's the rationale behind it? Do you know what I'm saying? How can you grasp it or process it? So it's interesting.
It is interesting, and I think I'm definitely not the qualified one to
Well,
entangle it
we
all
had that.
together, right? But just my
Well,
belief,
we're equally qualified because no one really knows, right?
right? But for me, and I, you've talked to me long enough, this half hour to know that I think on energies and emotions and feelings and connections, right? And for me, it just is this oneness, and I don't know how to explain it. The evidence is just a feeling for me.
Right. So, and that's interesting as well. And I want to talk about that a little bit. But so you have that feeling from that experience that you got, and that feeling has stayed with you.
Yes.
It's very tangible. So, how do you? Is there a relationship between you and this higher force? How do you connect to it, and what is it? What is the relevance of that connection if you do?
The relevance to me?
Yeah. Do you have any practices that so if there is this consciousness that exists, if it just exists and we don't connect to it, then is it relevant? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it could exist or it couldn't exist, it doesn't make no difference. That's the first thing. But if it does exist and you're aware of it, should one try and communicate with it? Should one try and build a relationship with it? And if one should, how does one do that? Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. So I think that probably looks different for everybody, dependent on their belief system. For me, I do that through morning meditations and just trying to find that connection. I do that through sound and through my yoga practice. That's just how I do that. But who's to say, somebody praying isn't the correct way, and I have definitely had my days of praying, right? So who's to say which way is better? I think that's something you have to come to terms within yourself. And so I'm definitely open-minded and never would judge anybody, but for their belief or how they choose to do so. But for me, I find it in those ways, that connection. And I like I said, a feeling that it's important and a feeling that it makes a difference.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to talk about also. It's like they say, a picture speaks 1,000 words. And then I argue, well, your feeling, your sense of intuition speaks 1,000 pictures. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's so powerful that it delineates, it brings down very complex issues. Anything, it brings it down to just one feeling of either positive or negative, and then you're going to go with the positive. You know what I'm saying? You can stay away from the negative. So that's very powerful as a language, as a communication. It's more powerful than words, and it's more powerful than even imagery, right? So okay, so what's the difference between prayer and meditation?
For me, there is for me, I'm clearing my mind of everything, trying to, and so really trying to connect to whatever I believe that higher power is. I don't know what
Are
you
you
would say.
trying to connect to that, or are you trying to connect to that, or are you just silencing your space when you meditate?
I would say silencing my space for most, but then I would say there's also times that I have the intent to connect.
And would you say it's like levels that you have to get to a certain wavelength of silence before you can get to the next stage of wanting to connect? Is that how it works? Or okay.
Well, and I think that's different, right? Like, who to say that I have the answer? This is just what I do, So for me, it is in my intention for my meditation, I think also matters as well.
Okay.
And then prayer. So I've prayed as well, but I've never, and this is probably, I think this is a learning experience for me because I'm just saying this and understanding this about myself. So I appreciate this conversation. But for me, I've never fully cleared my mind going into prayer. And so, I don't know, I just find that interesting that I'm just saying this out loud. And
Yeah. For me, like, I've reflected over the difference between meditation and prayer, and I've rationalized it or reasoned it that prayer is a subset of meditation. Like, prayer is a meditation. The only difference is that in meditation, you don't actually have to believe in anything big or greater than yourself. You can just meditate. So meditate is just like dwelling over or reflecting over or repeating over something. Do you get what I'm saying? So with prayer is that you're meditating over your belief in something bigger and greater than yourself. Do you understand? So you're
Yeah.
connected. That, I think that is, for me, my understanding of how I reason the difference between prayer and meditation, that you don't exclusively need to believe in something bigger or greater than yourself to meditate, but for prayer, the focus of the meditation is your pursuit of connection, surrender. But it also, it's like everybody does the same thing, and they're all trying to get present. They're all trying to get into the now, or the space of what is. And I think once you get into that space, you have awareness of feeling, and what is that feeling, and where's that feeling coming from. I guess either people don't address or don't want to answer, or maybe even see as irrelevant if you're just exclusively meditating. But I feel, that the human, we're both spiritual and physical. So we operate in the spiritual dimension and in the physical dimension. So, when we cancel the noise out, then we're operating in the spiritual dimension at that point. Do you know what I'm saying? So,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, what is that? Where is that? And where's that feeling coming from? How is it that we're getting that sensing and feeling? And, you're going through that feeling and you're taking action in the universe, you're taking action in the world. Well, then that feeling must be, and it's making it work for you, you're living, then that feeling itself must be, a force or reasoning in itself. It must have its own code to be able to allow you to operate effectively in the physical world. Do you understand?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can't be just random. But so what do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I feel like we've talked about quite a bit. I'm glad that you're having these conversations. I'm excited to dive into other ones to see how other people answer and learn more.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I've spoken to so many people, and I'm just going through this same thing. I'm just sharing your journey. And so, I think it's really important that people can, if they go through all the different episodes, then really they're getting a snapshot of lots of people's lives in an hour.
Yeah.
When you do, then you can pick up either the relevant points or the salient points or the common points or the different points. But there's a lot of information there.
Yeah, I think this is great. I'm like I said, I can't wait. I'm excited to dive in and really see the other perspectives. I appreciate you two bringing the conversation to the table, right? Because not easy conversations to have. And so for me, even a conversation like this is more learning and inner learning for myself. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've found it. I mean, I'm from Europe. They generally tend to have a little bit more of a conversation around more controversial subjects, but they seem to be able to have a conversation and not take it to, an extreme in terms of opinion of right and wrong. And, my general mindset is just to seek knowledge and, build awareness and get towards, I'm just a seeker, get closer towards truth. And, then you have to reflect on whether truth actually exists, and is there truth out there?
Yeah, what is truth? And I'm curious to know what the meaning of life is for you. And you've done several of these interviews so far, so I'm very curious to know your take on.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of deep work and a lot of thinking around it prior to doing this, and my reasoning on life is that it's not random, that the universe is not random. I don't think the universe is random, and my basis of thinking is reasoning and rationality. So, like, you've got to have a framework through which you come to conclusions, because if you don't have that framework, then you can't have a sensible conversation with other people. So the fact that me and you can talk is because we have a common understanding of reason and logic. Do you get what I'm saying? Why humanity's progress is because there's a common language of reasoning and logic, and through that they've been able to progress. So my framework is that whatever I observe is not a matter of faith. It's a matter of reasoning and logic, or I don't know the answer. It's not I have faith. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like I've got to a point where of what I understand, and beyond that, I don't understand it, but I don't draw a conclusion that I do understand it. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and I also believe that if the universe is non-random, then it would be very unfair for something to have put something into the universe and not told them why they did it. It'd be pretty sadistic. Do you get what I'm saying? That, hey, I'll create, like, I'll have a baby and I'll just throw it into the wilderness and let it survive by itself. You know, it doesn't jive with my reasoning. So I believe there is truth. I do believe truth is out there. But the fact that we don't know that we have to be curious is part of the answer, that we have to search for that meaning. And so the universe is non-random. I believe there's a higher power, some sort of force that's holding, because there are patterns and designs to the universe, that represents order, not disorder. And if that is the case, then there has to be something that precedes order to be able to hold order in place. So chaos is when there's no order, there's no correlation, there's no patterns, and everything's happening for no reason. But when you have order, then there are patterns, there are correlations, there are systems, there are ecosystems, there's properties and values. Like if you look at gravity, that's a law. A law is structure and order. You know, if you look at all the, you know, the whole or if you look at all the chemicals, you know, they all have properties and values. The atoms has properties and values. Everything is properties and values, but it looks random to us because, or chaotic to us because we don't have full knowledge. It's like when the people at the beginning, when they looked at the night sky and they thought the earth was flat, they couldn't make sense of the stars and the planets. Do you get what I'm saying? And they wouldn't call them planets, but they couldn't make sense of the night sky. But the second you understand that we're on a sphere and there's mathematics, then you can calculate the whole of the night sky and you can plot it. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. So then what was random becomes non-random. And it's in the same way that where we don't understand something, it's not that it's random, it's just that we don't understand it. We haven't got that level of knowledge yet. So so I believe that the universe is non-random and that there are patterns and designs to the universe. And if there are, then there must be something that's holding that in place. I don't have the intellectual capability to understand what that force is that's holding that thing, all the properties and values in place, but I know there has to be some sort of force that is. And that force is what I would refer to as the higher power of God or Allah or Paramatman or Jehovah or whatever you want to, Yahweh, whatever you want to call it. And you can also equally call it chance. It doesn't matter. The observation is the same, irrespective of whatever label you want to put on it. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And if that is the case, then if the universe has patterns and designs, then we are also part of that. Like if you have an equation, A plus B equals C, right now the human is just B or C or A. We're in the equation, but we don't understand the totality of the equation. We didn't create the equation, but because we're in the equation, there's a reason for us to be in the equation. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so we we are, we're here to figure that bit out. But we do have a reason or a purpose. We have, we're part of that. We're a variable in the equation. And so our journey is one of discovery, that we have to figure out what that variable is for us, for individually us, but that there is subjective truth that's individually for us, but then there is objective truth, meaning there are things that are consistent and make up the whole equation. Do you get what I'm saying? That we are, the objective truth is that there is an equation that exists. And then the subjective truth is that we are a variable within that, and we have our experiences. So when we're here, and I'm giving a long-winded answer, I apologize.
No, I like it.
But if we're here, then what differentiates us is experience, that we're conscious. What differentiates the human from all other animals is our level of awareness. Not only are we aware, which all animals and plants are, even rocks are, everything is aware, but the level of awareness we have is what I call consciousness, meaning that we're aware of the fact that we're aware. I don't think animals are aware of the fact that they're actually aware. They're just aware. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so our awareness, our consciousness, it registers and records. So we have memory and intelligence. You get what I'm saying? So it registers and records its experiences. And so I think the meaning of life is probably, for me, is that life is experience, that the meaning of life is to experience life itself. But with one kind of caveat, meaning that how do you define experience? What's the best way of getting experience? And so the best way of getting experience is when you fully express who you are. So when you're optimized, then you're experiencing the most. And if you're under optimized, then you're experiencing less than you could. So the meaning of life is to fully experience through full expression. So to fully express who you are, you have to live your truth. You have to live your identity. Do you get what I'm saying? So you have to understand what your identity is, meaning what your truth is. But who knows who knows what their truth is, right?
Right.
No one knows what their truth is. But in order to discover what your truth is, so truth is a feeling, is an intuition, is a what I call a calling. Your truth is your calling, right? But it's a feeling. And so even though I use rationality and I say that the framework for reasoning through everything is with rationality and logic, and some people say, well, you can't, everything isn't logical. But what I'm saying is that when you do the feeling of your intuition, I reason that that's the highest form of logic, that it's more powerful than just our intellectual logic, that feelings, like I said, speak 1,000 pictures as opposed to words speaking 1,000, word speaking a picture, but feelings speak 1,000 pictures. You know what I'm saying? So so reasoning and intuition, they're off the same plane, but one we understand and one we don't fully understand right now. Do you get what I'm saying? We can't process it in the same way. So to live your truth, you have to go and resonate with your intuition. And to do that is difficult because that means you have to get uncomfortable, and being uncomfortable means you have to put a stake in the ground and claim that this is you. And then once you've staked a claim in the ground, this is me, everybody's available to judge you. And you're then open to failure and the opinions of other people. And you're also open to being wrong. So no one wants to do that. So most of the world do not live their truth because that involves them having the opinions of others on them and judgment. So straight away, half the population is operating at a suboptimal level. But the idea is to live your truth. Living your truth is difficult. So in difficulty, how do you handle difficulty? That's the question. So for me, in order to be able to handle difficulty and uncertainty is the same thing. It's difficult. You're trying to get your truth, but that's difficult. And it's difficult because things are uncertain. The uncertainty is the difficulty. If everything was certain, then it wouldn't be difficult because you know what to do. But because there's uncertainty, then it's difficult. And so you have to create certainty in a world of uncertainty. So the only thing that you can be certain of is yourself, your thoughts, and how to handle or manage your thoughts, because everything else you're not in control of apart from your thinking. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then you have to go in. Because of that challenge of you trying to live your truth, you then have to go within. And then you have to try and seek certainty. And so you seek certainty through two things. There's only two things that are guaranteed in life. You know that, right? So it's life and death. You're certain that you're alive and you're certain you're going to die. So if you reflect on those two things, the beginning and the end, and you realize you're not in control of coming onto planet Earth and you are not in control of death, so you're not in control of leaving planet Earth, then you're not in control of the in-between either. So it's that realization of through reflection and reasoning. So it's an intellectual pursuit, that realization that you're not in charge or you're not in control, that creates a sense of surrender in you, meaning that it creates a humility in you, that you're not in charge, so you don't actually know. And so when you do that, you realize that because you're not in control of the beginning or the end, and you're not in control of the in-between, there is something that's bigger and greater than yourself that's created life and that's created death. So from the rational, that there are patterns and patterns and properties and values in the universe and laws, to your reasoning through experience that, life exists, death exists, and you're not in control, and you surrender to that understanding, you're connecting the two together. Do you know what I'm saying? You're connecting your reasoning to your experience. And then in that realization, you get to the what is space, the being present space, but with an awareness that there's a higher power. And so then all you're doing is you're at a humble stage and you've got clarity. And with that clarity, you communicate to the what is, and you discern more your ability to reason between the positive and negative feelings, and you take action on only what's the positive. So you've got a practice of like connecting to source to get you humility, to give you the clarity to feel your intuition of what is positive and what is negative. So it's not that the meaning of life is experience, is the other way around, that if you develop a practice of connection to something bigger or greater than yourself, you get the certainty to withstand the difficulty of living your truth, to be able to fully express yourself, to fully experience life.
Yeah, so, I agree 1000%. You like articulated what I was trying to say so beautifully, and explain my moment of realization. Exactly. You broke that down, even though that was just your philosophy, so eloquently. But I would say I was living prior to my transformation, in life. I was definitely living unconsciously, just going through the motions, right? Unconsciously, with no purpose, and in fear of judgment.
Yeah. And so it's the idea of not living your truth, not allowing you to express yourself fully, and not then being able to live your experience fully. So you got into that situation, you realized, and through that, you made that decision. You know what? I'm going to be who I am. So you were connecting to what I call your soul. So I believe like we have a pre-existing identity, a calling, and our journey is to fulfill it. So we have a soul, and people don't really talk about the soul, but they don't define the soul. So I define the soul as your identity that you have been presented with as potential, your full potential. And so it's always nudging at you, trying to get you to do something. And when you don't do that, then you feel dissatisfied or unhappy. You feel, so that is your soul. And then when you do something wrong or you're not happy with, then you seek forgiveness from your soul. You can say you feel bad, and then you want to fix that. So that awareness is also recognizing that we're a spiritual being having a physical experience. And not only that, but that actually people don't understand this, and some do, but we're actually spiritual beings having a physical experience, meaning that we're actually two in one, that we are operating in the spiritual dimension and in the physical dimension, two dimensions in the single form of the human entity. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when people talk about, I hate myself, it's who's the I and who's myself, right? But then also people nowadays are talking about self-love, and they're saying, you've got to be kind to yourself, don't be, but when you're being kind to yourself, who are you being kind to if you're not separate from the thing that you're trying to be kind to? So it's like recognizing that you're a spirit, you're a calling, you're an identity that is not tangible, you can't touch and feel it. That's your spiritual identity. And you're using the physical world to understand that spiritual identity, because the spirit doesn't have form, so it's not limited. So you can't understand who you are until you get into or operate in the physical dimension, in the physical world. When you go in through the physical world, then you are bounded by the laws of physics. So you're constrained in what you can and can't do. So you then figure out through that constraint who you are. If you could always be a swimmer. In your mind, spiritually, you are born to be a swimmer. If you don't take the jump into the deep end, you'll never know. So you have to use the physical world as a platform through which to understand who you are spiritually. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how it's going. And so we're two in one, and people don't understand that. So when they try and give self-love, is there I always see it like cowboy and T-Rex. Like there's a natural state, which is the physical state, and then there's cowboy or cowgirl, which is your spiritual state. So your cowboy or cowgirl is like navigating and directing you, it's your GPS. And then your T-Rex is your natural state, and it's unbridled, raw, very powerful, but it's undirected. And so the journey is for the cowboy to tame the T-Rex and ride it like they tame wild horses, and then domesticate them. Our journey is to try and domesticate our T-Rex, our natural state, and align the two, and that's when you become one. Do you get what I'm saying? Because you're taking the power of the spirit, but you're harnessing the power of the physics as well. And that's where you came into that space where you had tamed your T-Rex because the situation demanded such, and you became one. And so you were able to see everything as one. So when you tame your T-Rex at that level, then you are, you're very powerful. Like T-Rex is probably the most powerful animal in the jungle, right? So now if you're a cowboy and you've tamed T-Rex and you're riding T-Rex in the jungle, who's the most powerful?
Right, right.
It's the cowboy riding the T-Rex, right? So that's the thing. So when people talk about self-love, is because they are knocking their T-Rex. They loathe their T-Rex because their T-Rex is making them do stuff that they're not happy with. And then they shit on themselves, but they're not shitting on themselves. They're shitting on T-Rex. Now they have to, because T-Rex is, emotionally sensitive, shall we say, that if you make fun of it, it will feel sensitive about that. So then, they're always scolding themselves. But if they then be nice to their T-Rex, then, they can get it to where they need to in terms of alignment and stuff like that. But that's kind of roughly what my philosophy is, generally speaking.
Love it.
Yeah. So, where are you now, and what does the future for you hold?
Oh, wow. So, obviously I'm here in South Carolina. And my future, I just want to unapologetically be me and have a positive impact on everybody around me. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that.
So if you were an animal, what kind of animal would you describe yourself as?
Huh. People aren't going to like this, but it's the first one that comes to my mind. It's a cat.
Okay.
I don't know, because of the love and affection, positive. Not everybody has a positive experience, with cats, but for me,
Yeah.
it's been positive. I'm not a crazy cat lady, though, I promise.
Yeah. So, like, what would be the three qualities? Love and affection. What else?
Yeah, and intelligence.
Okay. And so let me ask you a couple of questions and we can wrap it up. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert.
Are you a realist or an idealist?
Idealist.
Are you rational or emotional?
So somewhere in between. I used to be purely emotional, but I try to be conscious of those emotions now. So and use that rational side of myself. So somewhere in between. But I used to operate completely emotional. Decisions were based, yeah.
And then are you a risk averse or a risk taker?
Risk taker.
Do you like certainty or uncertainty?
Uncertainty.
Okay. And the final question is, if you had the choice, they say you're the average of the 5 people that you most hang out with. If you had a chance to hang out with 5 people, past, present, or future, to raise your average, who would those 5 people be?
Okay, wow, I like that question. That's fun. So if I had the opportunity to fully, like, because I feel like I connect to a higher power right through meditation. But that'd be great. The creator, I know that's a cop out, but that's one that I want, that I don't need any other people there. 5, but 5 real, like, actual people will go there instead. Human people. Martin Luther King, I just think he was so inspirational and made such an impact and affected thousands of people around him. Rafael Nadal, I know that's strange, right? But also I feel like he's
easy. The
tennis. Yeah, he just it inspires me. He started so young and also has like this huge impact. It's just somebody like I'd like to surround myself with. This is gonna sound cheesy too. The Queen. I want. We're just naming 5 superpowers here. Super people that I would like to surround myself with.
Why the Queen?
It just interests me, and again, there's that level of inspiration and affecting those around. I just would love to have that perspective, that inside perspective. two other people. John Legend, that's a singer, but I like this creative side of him. I'd love to be able to hang out with him as far as getting to know that creative side. And then he also makes like these positive, he's bringing to light a lot of things that align with me and my beliefs. And then, fifth one, geez, this is hard. I like this question, but I just never thought about it. The 5 people I wish I had. Tony Robbins.
Okay. I think we got 5, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, it's a pleasure to talk to you. What's your final message, Sara, before we close out?
Just start living, start taking that first step. And, so for me, that message would be connect, realize we're one. I feel that we are one, and don't let fear hold you back. Just take the first step, whatever it is. And it could seem really small, but I think it's going to put you in the right step. Just put you in the right direction where you want to go. Just taking the first step that you're scared to take.
Awesome. So we will leave it there. And thank you so much for hanging out with me. Appreciate it.
Thanks. See ya.
All right. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.